Hello, I'm Andrzej from South Coast View. This video is about Franz Bernheim from Gleiwitz, German Upper Silesia, who, as a victim of Nazi anti-Jewish legislation, successfully took his grievance against the Third Reich to the League of Nations and won his case. There is a comprehensive list of my sources in a post about Franz Bernheim and his petition on the South Coast View website. You can see the post here. I'll leave a link to the post in the description below. On the 1st of April 1933, the German government announced the start of a boycott of Jewish businesses. You can see a photograph of the Defaka store in Gleiwitz city centre here. That's where Franz Bernheim worked and was dismissed from. This photograph dates from approximately 1940. In preparation for the boycott, one of the first companies in Gleiwitz to dismiss Jewish workers was the Deutsches Familienkaufhaus department store, commonly referred to as Defaka. The name of the store translates in English to German Family Department Store. You can observe that the ground floor of the building was occupied by F.W. Woolworth. That has nothing to do with Franz Bernheim, but I feel it's an interesting nostalgic aside relating to a once much-loved household name in the UK. Defaka issued press advertisements stating that out of a total of 4,000 employees, the store is free of Jews. I'm presuming that the 4,000 employees referred to would have covered the total Defaka workforce in Germany. Here is one such newspaper advertisement dating from 15 May 1933, published in the company newspaper of the United Upper Silesian Metal Works. At the foot of the advertisement it states that Defaka stores are, therefore, among the businesses to which the boycott measures announced by the Reich leadership of the NSDAP, that's the Nazi Party, do not apply. Therefore, every police officer is free to continue to obtain their supplies from Defaka. Franz Bernheim was a 33-year-old shop assistant at the Defaka store in Gleiwitz, German Upper Silesia. A quick mention about Bernheim's position at the store. There are multiple differing descriptions on many web pages of Bernheim's job description at Defaka. Some I have come across are manager, warehouseman, accountant, and sales assistant. I have settled on the latter, as that is Bernheim's position listed in his later petition submitted to the League of Nations. More about the petition later in this video. In line with the impending boycott of Jewish businesses, Bernheim received a letter from Defaka dated 31st of March 1933 informing him that his employment would be terminated on 30th of April 1933. In mid-April 1933, the anti-Jewish onslaught in Germany prompted the Jewish lawyers Arthur Kochmann, seen in this picture, and George Weissman to prepare a complaint to the League of Nations. Kochmann and Weissman were from Gleiwitz and Balthen respectively in German Upper Silesia, and were by now in exile in Katowice, Poland. After fleeing Germany, Bernheim first travelled to Katowice in Poland and visited the law firm of Dr. Marek Reichman at 3 Mariacka Street, where work on the petition continued in great secrecy. The Polish historian Leszek Jodliński is the only source I have found mentioning this. Jodliński says that it is likely that both Arthur Kochmann and George Weissman took part in preparing the petition at Reichmann's offices. Bernheim then travelled to Prague with his partially finished petition, where he was met by Kurt Grossmann at a Jewish refugee centre. A meeting took place in Prague with Dr. Emil Margulis, who you can see in this picture, who was a lawyer and prominent Zionist leader in Czechoslovakia. At this point, a suitable petitioner had been found, and Bernheim agreed to sign the petition. I'd like to briefly talk about the background to the League of Nations legislation that was to enable the petition to succeed. In 1922, Germany and Poland had signed the German-Polish Convention on Upper Silesia. The convention's legal status was to last for 15 years. This scan shows the cover page of the convention. Immediately following signing of the convention, the Upper Silesian Mixed Commission was established. This commission was composed of 2 Germans and 2 Poles and presided over by a neutral Swiss judge, Felix Kolonder, seen forth from the left in this photo. The commission had the task of an arbitration panel that attempted to resolve disputes brought by citizens of German Upper Silesia and Polish Upper Silesia. One of the key points of the convention was safeguarding the rights of all minorities in these regions. On 17th of May 1933, the petition, marked as urgent, was submitted to the League of Nations in Geneva by the Committee of Jewish Delegations. The Upper Silesian Mixed Commission had been worded to allow complaints to be marked as urgent if it was thought a case was of critical importance. The wording of the German-Polish Convention on Upper Silesia had provision for the submission of complaints via the Upper Silesian Mixed Commission. Crucially, however, the wording of the convention also allowed submission of complaints directly to the League of Nations, thus bypassing the Mixed Commission. Sean Lester, the Irish Free State's permanent representative at the League of Nations, was assigned to the case as rapporteur. As soon as the international Jewish community learnt of Lester's crucial involvement, they enlisted the help of Nahum Sokolov, a prominent Zionist leader who had the reputation of a skilled mediator. Together with the chief rabbi of Ireland, Yitzhak Halevi Herzog, they sought the help of Eamon de Valera, president of the Executive Council of the Irish Free State, to whom Lester reported. A meeting between the Jewish activists and de Valera occurred in Dublin, at which de Valera agreed to a timely and discreet intervention with Lester, urging to him the importance of the Bernheim Petition receiving a due hearing and progressing to a successful outcome. We now come to the crucial stage of the petition, namely its discussion at the League of Nations, and I will briefly discuss this. Initially, the League of Nations German representative Friedrich von Keller attempted to suppress debate on the petition, which of course was not going to be the end of the matter. During the League of Nations session held on Friday 26th of May 1933, von Keller said that he had immediately communicated to his government the Bernheim petition submitted a few days previously. The German government had authorized him to make the following declaration: "It is obvious that international conventions concluded by Germany cannot be affected by internal legislation. Should the provisions of the Geneva Convention have been violated in German Upper Silesia, this can only be due to mistakes on the part of subordinate organs acting under a mistaken interpretation of the laws. Blaming officials at a local level was an unexpected yet substantial and humiliating climb down by Germany, which paved the way forward for the petition to proceed." During the League of Nations session on 6th of June 1933, the League voted to uphold the Bernheim petition. Von Keller stated that while he did not accept the League's findings, he would not vote against them. In a decision in which Germany and Italy abstained, the League of Nations upheld the petition. While Bernheim's reinstatement at de facto in Gleiwitz might in theory have been possible, he never returned to Germany, but did pursue a financial compensation case for loss of earnings due to his unfair dismissal. Bernheim's unfair dismissal case was heard between 17th of October 1933 and 2nd December 1935 at the Upper Silesian Mixed Commission in Katowice, Poland, and at the Office for Minorities in Oppeln, Germany. Bernheim was represented by his lawyers Dr. Marek Reichman and Dr. Emil Margulis, who had, as previously mentioned, drafted his petition to the League of Nations. The court's verdict was that Bernheim had been unfairly dismissed. De Facto initially offered Bernheim 380 marks compensation, although they eventually increased their offer to 1,600 marks. Before the case was finalized, Bernheim had emigrated to the United States and settled in New York. As previously mentioned, the expiry of the German-Polish Convention on Upper Silesia was in 1937, and in that year the German government stripped Bernheim of his German citizenship. What changed for the Jews of Upper Silesia following the successful outcome of the petition? Until 1937, Germany continued to be bound by the German-Polish Convention on Upper Silesia. In particular, Germany did not wish to alienate the German-speaking minority in Polish Upper Silesia, who also depended on protection from the convention. During the few years left until expiration of the convention in 1937, it is true that some of the legal protection promised was fulfilled. German Jews of the region could keep their passports and leave Germany if they wished. While local officials remained obstructive, some Jewish lawyers, doctors, and civil servants were able to continue their work and, in some cases, receive back their positions. Nazi laws banning marriages between Jews and non-Jews were lifted, as was the ban on kosher slaughter. The historian Brendan Karch tells us that those Jews of German Upper Silesia who benefited from protection, and their enemies alike, described the area as a Jewish nature preserve. Following expiration of the convention in 1937, the full force of Nazi anti-Jewish legislation was unleashed. I'd like to talk about the players in the Bernheim Petition. As previously mentioned, Franz Bernheim had emigrated to the United States in 1935 and settled in New York, where he died in 1990. Little is known about his life in the US. He did not keep in touch with any Jewish or Zionist organizations. His nephew, George Wieland Hertzfelder, pictured here, recalled his uncle as warm and somewhat withdrawn. On occasions, he accompanied his uncle to a Czech restaurant as a recall to his time in Prague. Even then, Bernheim was reluctant to talk about the days of the petition, saying that it was the only possible way to stop Hitler, and that was his motivation for participating. To the best of my knowledge, there are no photographs of Franz Bernheim accessible via the internet. If you have a photograph of Bernheim and would allow me to use it on the South Coast View website and on my social media, please contact me. I'll leave my contact details in the description below. Next, I'd like to talk about Sean Lester, who was, as mentioned above, the Irish Free State's rapporteur. Nathan Feinberg, an expert in international law, lobbied and promoted the Bernheim Petition at the League of Nations on behalf of the Committee of Jewish Delegations. Feinberg had this to say about Sean Lester. The Germans encountered a man with moral backbone and a courageous fighter for human liberty. He was not deterred by pressure and was unwilling to compromise. The fact that the Germans were unable to muzzle the petition and prevent a public debate should be credited primarily to Mr. Lester, who exercised responsibility and exemplary courage. During 2 weeks of tedious, nerve-wracking negotiations, he gallantly defended human dignity and demanded that human rights be honored. Wow, well deserved. In 2010, Lester's daughter Anne Gorski, together with his granddaughter Lucy Kilroy and great-grandson Brian Gageby, attended a ceremony at Gdańsk City Hall in honor of Lester. Earlier that year, the main parliamentary party meeting room at the City Hall had been renamed as the Sean Lester Room. Arthur Kochman, one of Bernheim's lawyers, returned to Gleiwitz and died in a concentration camp. Many sources on the internet claim that Arthur Kochman died in Auschwitz. The Upper Silesian Jews' House of Remembrance Museum in Gliwice, Poland, is more careful in their wording about the circumstances of Kochman's death. They state the following: Arthur Kochman was murdered in a concentration camp. In December 1943, he was probably in the last transport of Jews from Gleiwitz bound for a concentration camp. This is how in 1925 the newspaper Oberschlesien im Bild, in English Upper Silesia in Pictures, described Arthur Kochman. Arthur Kochman, Councillor of Justice and City Elder of Gleiwitz, celebrated his 60th birthday on December 24th. He has been a member of the City Council for almost 30 years and served as an unpaid City Councillor for 25 years. In recognition of his services, the city awarded him the title of City Elder in 1918. Councillor Justice Kochman also held several honorary offices. From 1919 onward, he represented the Upper Silesian Democrats in the Prussian State Parliament. Dr. Emil Margulies, one of Bernheim's lawyers, emigrated to Palestine on 15 March 1939 and died in Tel Aviv in February 1943. Dr. Marek Reichman, one of Bernheim's lawyers, was a crucial player in the Bernheim Petition. When World War II broke out, Dr. Reichman and his wife left Katowice for Warsaw. They were permitted to leave Poland late in 1939 and went by train to Germany. They travelled through Switzerland, Italy and Portugal, from where, together with their 2 children, they boarded a ship bound for Brazil and arrived there in April 1941. The immediate family of the Reichmans were saved by the Brazilian Visa Project. I'll leave a link to details of the Brazilian Visa Project in the description below. In July 2023, a descendant of Dr. Reichman reached out to me and kindly provided me with the above information and associated photograph. We know from the 1939 publication Polish Judiciary in Silesia that in February 1938, Dr. Reichman was still a practicing lawyer in Katowice. His name is listed in this publication under the section Silesian Bar Association. At some stage, perhaps after or just before the outbreak of war in 1939, the Reichman family were overtaken by the events described in this biography section. It is incredibly sad that Arthur Kochman, a celebrated and respected resident of Gleiwitz, as described in this newspaper article from 1925, was to become another victim of Nazi persecution and would ultimately be murdered. All the other heroes on the side of the Bernheim Petition escaped to safe countries. Dr. George Weissman, one of Bernheim's lawyers. Dr. George Weissman, formerly lawyer in Balthen, passed away in Tel Aviv. His name was closely associated with the so-called Bernheim Petition, which, together with several other legal experts, he submitted to the League of Nations in 1933. As the result of the petition, called after a Jewish employee who had been dismissed by his firm for racial reasons, the Jews in Upper Silesia were recognized as a minority in the meaning of the German-Polish Agreement and not affected by the Nazi legislation until this agreement expired in 1937. In Israel, Dr. Weissman was a legal advisor with the United Restitution Organization. Eamon de Valera. At the time of the formation of the Bernheim Petition, he was president of the Executive Council of the Irish Free State and later became President of Ireland. He held the office of President between 25th of June 1959 and 24th of June 1973. De Valera died in 1975. Friedrich von Keller, representative of the Third Reich at the League of Nations, died on 8 May 1960 in Tutzing, Bavaria, West Germany. Let's fast forward to more recent times and talk about developments in Gliwice, Poland, formerly Gleiwitz in Germany. The photo shows the Defaka building during contemporary times. The building is today known as IKAR. On 31st of March 2021, the organization Młodzi Aktywni Gliwice, in English Active Youth in Gliwice, petitioned City Hall in Gliwice to mount a plaque commemorating Franz Bernheim outside his former residence in Gliwice, Schillerstraße 6B, now known as Wybrzeże Wojska Polskiego 6. On 13th of May 2021, the Deputy Mayor of Gliwice responded that permission would not be granted for the erection of the plaque. The city authority cited multiple reasons for their refusal, stating that there was already sufficient public information about Franz Bernheim and the Jews of Upper Silesia at the Museum of Gliwice and in various publications, which they named, relating to the history of Jews of the area. My view is that the consequences of this decision suppress awareness of the Bernheim Petition and its creator. Unless you specifically visit the museum in Gliwice or consult one of the named publications in the city's reply, the average resident of Gliwice or tourist passing Franz Bernheim's former residence remains ignorant that a person of significant importance in the history of the Jews of Upper Silesia once lived at the premises. How many Jews were saved because of the Bernheim Petition? As previously mentioned, Jews could keep their passports and leave German Upper Silesia for safer countries if they wished. As far as I know, there are no statistics on the number of Jews leaving the area for safe lands, so this is an impossible question to answer. For sure, some Jews would not have received deportation orders. Yet those who chose to stay would, in most cases, be murdered in concentration camps, once deportation started following the expiration of protections in 1937. Because the Bernheim Petition was upheld, there was a route to safe lands for those who chose to leave. For this reason, the success of the Bernheim Petition was, in my view, a significant event in the history of the Jews of German Upper Silesia. You can see a list of posts about Germany on the South Coast View website. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. I'll see you in the next video.